The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a living legend. It's a game that it's still currently new, relatively new. It's been out for, I would say, a few months now. And even though it hasn't completed its run, its entire cycle, I can already say that it's achieved a historical status, like among the top five best Zelda games of all time. And that's a difficult thing for any game, any publisher, any producer, any corporation to do because typically you need some time to fully absorb the impact that the type of medium that you're currently using. You need some time to let things settle. You need to let this dust settle for you to be like, okay, I've had some time now. Now I can truly analyze this movie. It has fully soaked in into society. Many people have reviewed it. You know, it's like stable. Now we can judge it. We can critique it. And that's a difficult thing to do. But with Tears of the Kingdom, I within the first couple of days of me playing this game, I already knew. I just felt it. I know it sounds cheesy, but like I felt it. Like, oh, this is this game is gonna go down in history. Like this game, not only for its the fact that generally it's just a great fucking game overall, but also just because the the direction that they took, which it didn't stray far from the first Zelda, which was Breath of the Wild. You can kind of look at Tears of the Kingdom as just like a massive expansion, like a DLC. But the way that they did it is still sort of a mystery to me, right? And what I mean by that is it feels like a brand new game. Now, all they did was just add to their already existing world from the Breath of the Wild, and they just elaborated. They just made it more expansive, added more events, switched some shrines around, added new mechanics, new bosses, new storyline. So, in all sense and purposes, it is a brand new game, but it's still deeply rooted in Breath of the Wild. So, it's like if someone were to say it's just a really giant expansion, I can't really argue with that, although I don't necessarily fully agree with that point. I would say, no, it's its own game. That would be my stance. But if someone were to say it's an expansion, I'd be like, I get it. I could totally understand why you would think that, but honestly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you think it's a full standalone game or some sort of an expansion. The game is great. It's a fantastic game. I have some minor gripes with it, and that's another reason as to why I feel like it's already a historic game, right? Because it's not a perfect game. Once again, I've said this millions of times. I hate saying that about things. It's not perfect. You can't compare nothing to perfect because nothing is perfect. That's a low standard in my eyes. Like, that's a good way to diminish something. It's just compare anything to perfection. That's how you diminish it, right? Because nothing is perfect. It's not fair for you to compare anything to anything perfect. But I do have some minor gripes with it, and that's a big reason why I think it's historic, right? Because I only have minor gripes with it. There's nothing major, nothing game breaking. I rarely encountered bugs, and this game is still relatively new. Usually, games of this magnitude have a bunch of bugs and a bunch of like things that they need to iron out. Excuse me. And in this game, it's hard to find them. Yeah, minor things like frame drops when you hit certain cities, and sometimes the game kind of freezes a little bit, but then it gets right back on track. Um, some enemies, you'll hit them in their sweet spot and they won't react to it really. It's like things like that. They're all minor technical bugs, nothing game breaking at all. And the fact that there isn't nothing game breaking at all, to my knowledge at least, I'm sure there's been users that have reported maybe game breaking bugs, but I haven't really heard of any jump out. That's another reason why this game is already monumental. It's a huge game, literally, and also status wise. To talk more about my little gripes with it, they're all minor. They're all like one of the biggest gripes I had with it, as minor as it was, would be what I assume would be translation errors. Like there's plenty of side quests and stuff where they'll be like, hey, go deep down North Akala Mountains or something like that. And you'll go down there to find you're on the lead for a quest, or you're trying to find a shrine, or you're doing some sort of quest in general. And it turns out that it's not deep down Akala Mountains or whatever. It's actually a little farther, or it's a little closer. And I'm attributing that to translation errors. There's that happened a lot. It took me, no bullshit, almost 2 weeks to find my first fairy. And I think there's four of them all in total in the game. And I was just going off the instructions of someone that I was speaking to in one of the stables. And I forgot what the exact directions were, but I remember they were sort of kind of vague, and it really took me that long, like almost 2 weeks. And that was on and off of me searching. There'll be days where I'm searching, there'll be days where I'm not. And then you get distracted because Tears of the Kingdom is ADHD heaven, right? You're on one quest and you're doing one thing. You're like, okay, I gotta knock this quest out. And on the way there, you see some Koroks in trouble. Help me get to my friend. Or you'll see, that guy holding a sign that you have to help 50,000 times, and you have to like get wood to stabilize his sign or whatever. Or you'll run into like a shrine quest or something, like on the way to your quest. It's like ADHD heaven, man. I like it though. I like the fact that there's always something to do no matter what. But that was one of my biggest gripes, was the translation error that I'm attributing that to. That I feel like it wasn't as clear as I wanted it to be. You've had some hit detection issues. Not so much like you will hit the guy, you'll hit your enemy or whatever, but sometimes it won't register as, like, I'm gonna call it a power hit, when you hear like a little ding when you hit him in the head. That lets you know, like, oh, you hit him right in the head. That should knock them down or take more damage. Sometimes you'll hit an enemy in the head several times and nothing would happen. You'll just hear the ding, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if that registered. I don't know if that was an intentional design, or it didn't register correctly. I'm not too sure. Um, there were some instances of the game freezing, but not completely locking out. Like, it'll freeze, and then for like 5 seconds, I won't be able to move. And I'm like, oh shit, I think I got to restart the game, and then it'll start to move again. That happened a few times, and I'm sure there's a couple of other technical issues that I've had. But as you can tell, those three that I just named, they're not big at all. You know what I'm saying? I can't say that there was anything that shut my game off, or kicked me out unexpectedly, or I was on a quest where I couldn't finish it because it was like a game breaking bug. It was nothing of that nature. And I it's impressive. You can tell that they put so much love into this game. Like, they put a lot of attention and detail, and like they have to get this shit right. This is one of their, premier products, like their marquee products, like, which is The Legend of Zelda, right? They know that a lot rides on this, so I know that they had all hands on deck on this, and it shows. It shows they put a lot of attention and detail into it. The game is massive. It feels like I've been playing this game for a little over 2 months, mostly on more than off. Like, there are some days where I didn't play at all, like yesterday, for example. But overall, I've got a decent chunk of the game finished in about a little over 2 months. I don't have much to go on the storyline quest right now. I'm just knocking out side quests and just exploring for shrines and stuff like that. And I still have to do the underground map as well as the sky map. So I got a lot of time left before I fully finish this game. And I want to enjoy this shit, because this shit was $75. And I understand that's the new norm for video games nowadays, but like, price wise. But it's still weird to me that that's an extra 15, well, extra $10, because it's usually 65 after taxes for like an average game. So it's like, that's like an extra $10 I'm shelling out, and I don't know why. Maybe because I'm spending more money, I feel more attached to the product. I'm like, oh, I spent money, I spent good money on this shit. I better finish it. I don't know if it's that, or if it's just my OCD nature of like, I need to finish this before I move on to anything else. Like, I can't explain to you. Maybe it's a factor of both. I did already mention that the game, even though some people may say it's an expansion, it certainly feels like a new game to me. Now, I don't know if that's because I have not played Breath of the Wild in years. The last time I played Breath of the Wild is maybe a year, after it launched, which I believe it launched in 2017. So like 2017, 2018 was the last time that I played Breath of the Wild. So like when I jumped back into Tears of the Kingdom, everything felt new to me. There were so many NPCs that I did not recognize. Even like major story plot characters. I'm like, oh shit, I don't know who that is. You know, like just I'll give you one example out of many. I have so many, but the most current one was I was recently like in a Zora domain, and the girl Mifa. I guess I don't. She died. I don't remember her at all in part one. You know what I mean? I had no idea if that's my shitty memory or maybe she didn't play as big as a role as I thought because I know she was part of the plot of part one or whatever, but she died apparently. I don't know if that happened in part one or that just happened during the events of this game because this game takes place several years or whatever, or some time after the Breath of the Wild. So I'm pretty sure it's my shit memory. You know, and I'm gonna attribute it to that. So yeah, it to me, for someone coming from someone not playing Breath of the Wild for so many years and then jumping into this one, it's going to feel like a literal fresh start. And that's a good thing. That's like if you're in that position, the position that I was in, then you're going to truly enjoy this game because it's going to feel more new than, expanded upon. So that could be a good reason why I feel like it's pretty magical that they were able to take an already existing world and make it feel so new. You know, like there are plenty of games that I can think. Actually, I can't. There are plenty of games out there. I can't think of plenty right now, but I can think of some where they're open world and you go out throughout this entire open world, you clear out everything you need to clear out, and you finish the game. Next thing you know, you hear there's a DLC coming out for that game. You download the DLC, and it's just more of the same, more of the original base game. You're like, okay, this is an expansion. This just makes what I already was doing in the original game. It just prolongs it. I'm still clearing out enemy camps and you know, finding point of interests and expanding the map. I'm still doing that just on the new expansion. So it feels like an expansion. Not, which is it could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on your view on it. Some people want something different. If they're going to pay for DLC, it's like, hey, I want some new mechanics or, new storylines or whatever. And most of the time you do get that. But sometimes you kind of don't. Sometimes they're either weak, you do get it, but they're a weak plot, weak mechanics, or just, and that kind of makes the game boring. Like I've played games where, I finished the base game and let's say I bought the ultimate edition or something and I'm like, okay, there's still a lot to finish. Once I finish this base game, but once I've finished the base game, I'm like, I kind of don't want to do anything else anymore. Like I don't want to play the DLC. I feel like I've had my fill. And that's not necessarily a testament to a bad game. That's just, me. That could be, I know for a fact that's me personally, the type of person I am. Like, I only can have so much of something for so long before I go, I'm tired of this. Even if it's something I like, it could be food, it could be a person, it could be a place. If I see too much of this person, if I'm in this place too much after a while, I'm just like, I'm sick of it. And honestly, I kind of feel like that about politics too. When they're shoving things politically, when they're shoving things down your throat, particular things, when you go online and that's all you see, a certain political agenda, you or whatever the case may be, you start to like, oh fuck, man, like, this is everywhere I go. Like I'm actually sick and tired of this. I feel like that about ads. I think I've mentioned this before. I'm the type of person, if I see an ad a bunch of times, it's not going to make me buy the product. After the third or fourth time after I've seen that ad, I'm like, fuck this ad. And I've said this with shit that I like, with video game ads, with lifestyle ads, exercise ads, all this stuff I like, healthy lifestyle ads. And I'm just like, even products that promote, um, healthy products. Wait, that makes sense. Whatever. What I'm saying is, even if it's something I like, if you're shoving it down my throat, I don't like it. That sounded weird, but you know what I mean. After about 2 months of playing this game, yeah, I already found myself thinking like that several times. There were times I'm playing the game and I'm kind of like, I'm a little over this, But then I'll do something cool and I'm like, nope, never mind. Still love this game. So I can't even say mixed feelings. That wouldn't be right because overall, I would say 80% of me is still enthusiastic to play this game. It's just certain times I'm running around and I'm gliding and I'm not really finding anything, or I'm kind of just trying to look for shrines and they're a little difficult to find because they're not, unless you go online and find out their exact locations, which I don't like doing. I like to just explore the game with no guide, no hand holding. I just want to experience it on my own. That can get a little boring sometimes because you can play the game for hours and not really find anything of interest, and it won't be that way if I knew exactly where all the shrines were, or side quests were, or places where I can find new pieces of armor, or whatever the case may be. Um, is an interesting is an interesting dynamic with the difficulty too. Now that I think about it, right? Because it feels kind of Dark Souls-ish, right? It doesn't look like it. Graphically, and also just the fact that on the surface, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild looks like a kid's game. It looks like a cartoonish, cel shaded, simple game that kids would enjoy. But then you play it and it's kind of deceptive because you're like, holy shit, there's sections here in this game, and lots of sections too, as well as enemies like Lionels and stuff like that, and Gleeoks. Like these are tough enemies that give me that Dark Souls vibe, where I'm like, yo, this is actually pretty difficult. Like I have to, stand upright. Usually I'm laying down on my couch playing Zelda because it's relaxing for me. But when you're fighting these Lionels or Gleeoks, I sit upright, like Dark Souls style. That's like game mode activated. And I'm like trying to fight for my life here and I'm dying a lot of times and I feel kind of excited. I'm like, oh, that's crazy how I'm getting this level of difficulty from a Zelda game. I didn't expect that. Like usually, and at least in my experience, Zelda games don't really get difficult till like towards the end when you're getting closer to like the final boss, or when you're fighting certain bosses. You're like, okay, this is pretty difficult. But yeah, like the difficulty's kind of all over the place, but in a good way, because everything is optional in this game. That's one theme that I noticed that is persistent. Like everything is optional. They go out of their way to let you know that everything is optional. You can make a beeline straight for the storyline. You probably don't want to do that right off the bat, especially when you have a little bit of hearts. You start off with like 3 or 4 hearts or something like that. You're going to get your ass handed to you every time. You're going to get one shotted by everything. So it's best to at least, get yourself a significant number of hearts in order for you to make a beeline for the storyline. But once you do that, or if you're that damn good of a player, you'll finish the game with just a few hearts, which I'm sure people can do. Um, you can make a beeline straight for the storyline. You can go around hunting for shrines. You can go around hunting for armor. You can do some side quests. You can just go exploring. You can find yourself some lore and stuff like that. Read like diaries that are left under wells and shit like that. I like the fact that everything is purely optional. It's like you do what you want to do. You want to finish this game. You don't want to spend over 2 months like I did in this game. You only got a week. You only got 3 days. You only got 4 days. You can finish this game. You know what I mean? I like that purely optional nature to it, and I understand that's nothing revolutionary. Lots of open world games have these attributes, I guess, or these specs. I don't know what to call them. Features. Features is probably a better word. Lots of them have it, so I can't say it's exclusive just to Zelda, but it's nice to know that you don't have to spend months in this game. Me and my brother started playing this game around the same time. He absolutely loved it. He made a beeline for the storyline and ended it in like 2 weeks or something like that. I'm still playing it 2 months later, and he's like dying to talk to me about the storyline and all that. And I'm just like, no, don't tell me anything. I'm going to take my time with this game. I'm going to make sure that I fully savor this game. I don't know if I'm going to keep my Switch after this game because I never thought I would be one of those people to buy an entire console just for a specific game, but here I am. I've bought my Nintendo Switch specifically for Breath of the Wild. And I have played it since then, since 2017, but most of the time it was collecting dust. I'm not going to lie to you. Most of the time it just sat there, just charging or not charging, depending on if I moved or not. But from 2017 on to now, I've not played it more than I've played it. And after the Breath of the Wild, after Tears of the Kingdom, I don't know if I'm gonna keep it. I'm still like debating on that because The way I live, if you knew who I was personally, you would understand why. Because that may not make sense to some people. They may be hearing me now and going like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Why can't you just keep it and also have your PC or your console?" But I'm not that type of guy. I live a very minimalist lifestyle. I know that sounds weird. It may even sound snobbish to some people, but I don't mean it that way. I really do. Like you come to my apartment, it just looks like I moved in. I barely have anything here. And I like living that way. I feel like I live like a nomad, like when it's time for me to move, I can pack up all my shit in one ride and in one instance and just roll out like a fucking vagabond. Like those traveling people with like the stick on a rag. He has all his belongings inside of the rag. That's how I'm living right now. And I'm not saying that as a pride thing. Like I don't know if I'm necessarily proud of that. Actually, I kind of am, to be honest with you, because I do like the fact that I don't put a lot of sentimental value into things. I'm not big on that. I'm not big on art or portraits or anything. I like it. Don't get me wrong. Like I like it when someone else has it. I like to go over a friend's house and they have art hanging around the walls and shit, and I'm like, this is cool. I can appreciate this fully, but I can't picture myself packing up 90 boxes every time I need to move and stuff like that. Of course, that's probably not a problem if you own a home, right? You don't need to worry about moving or anything. Whatever. I don't know if I'm actually going to keep my Switch after Tears of the Kingdom. I still want to play Metroid Dread. I have not played that yet. I heard it's great. I also heard it's really difficult, which I'm down for that. We'll see where that goes as far as my little Switch um dilemma here. It's charming. Tears of the Kingdom is charming. There were times where I'm not even gonna lie to you, I got a little choked up with certain quests, and some of the characters are just so goddamn adorable. Those little Koroks with their little weird faces. I'm like, oh man, if it's one thing the Japanese know how to do, well, they know how to do fucking everything, really. They're like a mega power. But when it comes to video games specifically, if it's one thing, and anime also, right? They know how to make cute characters, right? When it comes to programmers, developers, artists, producers, whatever, they know they zeroed that shit in to the point where their characters, Japanese characters, are so cute. Anime characters, video game characters, they're so adorable that people want to look like them in real life. To the point where they're getting like surgeries and shit like that to have like these big wide eyes and these cat-like noses and shit. And in a weird way, I kind of get that. Like I'm like I can see why you would want to look that beautiful or that cute in real life, but it just doesn't translate well, right? When you see these people in real life, or at least you see pictures of them online, these people that have had these major surgeries, you kind of start to think like, holy shit, that does not look good. You know what I mean? Like it's maybe for the girls. I've seen some girls that look like little cute cats and stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, cool. I guess that looks adorable, or whatever, or even sexy because some of them are just wearing just tiny little skirts and stuff like that, and little blue hair with little elf ears and stuff. And I'm like, ah, that looks pretty good. I like that. It's attractive. But I've seen many photos of both men and women just trying to look like their favorite anime character by getting actual surgery, and I'm like, holy shit, bro, that looks pretty freaky. Like, but that's that. I love that the fact that this game's just dripping with charm. Just you can just run around and just encounter all sorts of funny, wacky characters. I've laughed plenty of times with the funny stuff that people have said. Like this is another reason why this game's gonna be historic, right? It's so memorable, and the music. Like there's sometimes I'll hear the music and it reminds me. I'll get like little flashbacks of Breath of the Wild. Like my favorite song in the game is the Hateno Village theme. I don't know why. Every time I hear that, I get this fluttering in my chest. I know that sounds kind of sappy. I'm sorry if it does, but it's like I hear that theme from Hateno Village, and it's like, like I almost makes me want to pause with emotion. I love it so much, and I don't know if it's because it remind. Well, first of all, it's a catchy little tune. The little violin and the little Caribbean like steel drums or whatever. There's something about it that's really cool, but also just the fact that it's one of the very few themes that I remember from Breath of the Wild, and I'm like, oh, okay, so it hit that little nostalgia switch for me or whatever. And it's cool. Um, the weapons breaking thing, that was a big complaint from part one. That was, I remember, I wasn't the only one that felt like that. Like, you know, and you're in the middle of a battle and your weapon breaks, your bow breaks, your shield breaks, and you're like, fuck, dude, like, why can't I have something that just doesn't break, right? Because before, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think there's any other Zelda before Breath of the Wild that had your weapons actually break. Now deplete, that's something different. Arrows deplete, bombs deplete, your little flame lantern things deplete. That's understandable. Um, but I don't remember weapons actually breaking, your actual physical weapons. So that's kind of a pain. You have to be very strategic. I understand it adds a layer of strategy, right? Like, 'cause now you're like, okay, whenever I'm about to fight a big boss, I have to make sure that I have to craft the best weapons possible and you know, get those damn Korok seeds so I can get some storage and prepare myself to fight for my life, basically. And I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. You know, even things that are to your detriment, right? Like things that are like, for example, like when it's raining and it's thunderstorming, you have metal weapons equipped. You can get shocked by electricity and die because that shit takes mad energy from you, right? That doesn't bother me. To some people, I can understand. I can totally understand why they would get upset. You know, it's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, you know, like, what if you don't have any wood weapons that aren't conductive to electricity or whatever, then you have to remove all your weapons, right? And then, you know, you're let's say you're gliding around or something, you finally land and it's still thunderstorming and it's raining and you have enemies surrounding you. You can't bring out your weapons because you're gonna get shot. So you have to run. It can be a pain. And speaking of thunderstorm, that goddamn rain. Every time you're about to do a mission or you're about to climb towards something or you're in the middle of climbing, boom, it rains. It rains so much in this game. It drives me nuts. One of my major complaints. But that's been around since part one, and I understand that it's like it adds a layer of realism, right? And not only that, it gives you incentive to craft potions or wear armor that's slip resistant, which brings me to my next complaint, right? Since I'm bitching all the time now. I have the full frog armor, I believe. It's supposed to be slip resistant. I have the helmet, I have the pants for it, the trousers or whatever, and I have like the chest attire, the tunic or whatever the fuck it's called. So I look like this weird stealth. I look like Sam Fisher in a frog outfit almost. And I'm trying to climb mountains, and I'm first of all, you can't do the hop thing when you're climbing. You can hop and gain more not momentum, but you gain more distance by hopping instead of just regularly climbing. Uh, you still slip, and even you know, and I think it's every I counted. I think it's every 12 or 13 seconds. You got about 12 or 13 seconds of climbing before you start to slip. So I'm like, what's the point of me having full on armor, right? Or even taking some sort of a potion to make me slip resistant. I'm still slipping. It doesn't take me as long to slip as if I didn't have this armor or potion, but I still slip. And I'm like, well, come on, man. If I'm wearing full slip resistant armor, I shouldn't slip at all. I should not slip. That's super fucking tiny gripe. Sorry about that. That's just a little thing that always pissed me off. But that's nothing new to Tears of the Kingdom. That's also a Breath of the Wild thing. And I just think that that falls under the realm. The electricity, getting shocked by metal weapons that conduct electricity, uh, being subject to like the currents of the rivers, you know, like you have to swim against it. Um, what else? What did I just name? The climbing when it's raining and everything's slippery. All that I think just falls under the realm of realism, which is I think that's what Nintendo's aim was, like Breath of the Wild. Like we're gonna make a realistic game where you have to survive out in the wild, but you know, of course, it's semi-realistic. I should really emphasize that because obviously it's a fantasy game, and also it's kind of like a survival light game, right? Like you don't have a hunger meter, you don't have a thirst meter. Although that would have been interesting to have, right? Like Breath of the Wild should have had like a hunger and thirst meter. That would have been kind of cool. That would have been a first for Zelda, but you know, I don't mind. I believe the word is detriment. I'm not even sure. I'm just throwing out fucking words that I don't even understand fully. But even if you install a mechanic, if you put a mechanic into a video game that actually works against you, but it's done right, I'm a fan. If like hunger and thirst, right? lots of people hate that in video games. They're like, I don't know, I want a fucking adventure. I want to run around and do shit, kill bosses, and explore caves and shit. I don't want to have to worry about hunger and thirst. I like hunger and thirst. It adds this little micromanaging level of I don't know. It's just cool. It just makes me really think about food. Makes me really think about what I'm gonna drink and how long will it last and what has the most benefits and stuff. Like that's why I like survival games and stuff. If you implement it correctly, it's actually it adds to the experience of the game. But of course, if it's like a thirst meter that just depletes every 10 seconds or something, you're like, fuck, dude, this is actually getting in the way. Um, it's all you see. All the things that I've named that I don't like about the game, they're all tiny and can be easily ignored. If anyone out there is having major game breaking bug issues, I'm sorry, man. It's I don't really look up Legend of the Zelda complaints or anything like that. So I don't really know. Maybe there is some sort of a game breaking bug. Although you can break the game yourself intentionally. I've seen people do some weird, crazy shit. They're building fucking assault vehicles and fighter jets that can shoot laser beams and shit. And I'm like, fuck, dude. Like, I don't even have the imagination for that. But also, I do feel like I've also seen videos of people just game breaking the game, doing some borderline shady stuff to finish this game or whatever. And I'm not a fan of that, but I do appreciate the fact that people are, I like the fact that they're testing this game to the limits. They're pushing it to the limits and finding what works and what doesn't and exploiting it. It's all right, I guess, when it comes to that. I mean, I can't recommend this game enough. Obviously, you hear me gush about it. If you, I would, it's cool now because if you haven't played any of these, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, you can start with Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. And even though they're practically in the same world, same graphics, same everything, even some of the same characters, they feel like two completely different games. Part Tears of the Kingdom alludes a lot to part one. Like they talk about part one a lot, but it's nothing that like if you missed it, the calamity, you kind of just go, nah, it's okay. I feel like I got like a base understanding of it. Let me just focus on Tears of the Kingdom. Like basically what I'm trying to say is that you don't need to play Breath of the Wild to play Tears of the Kingdom. And that's always a good touch, because you might just got swept up in the hype of Tears of the Kingdom, but not so much in Breath of the Wild. So you don't have to worry about playing both. Although the good thing is that like you totally can. If you got a lot of fucking time and you really want to thoroughly enjoy and play two fantastic games, there you are. They're both here for your enjoyment. Overall, highly recommend. Still playing it when I'm gonna play it today later. When I get the chance, and hopefully I'll find some cool shit and maybe next time make a video just all bitching. Like, whoops, I'm bitching. 30 minutes of just complaints. Now, there's too much of that on the internet, right? That sells, right? Top 10 things I hate about this game. How many of those videos you have on your feed? I know I have too many. Too fucking many. Thanks for listening. Catch you guys later.